Hello, Missladypetal here. Now I'm doing Documented Life Week 28 prompt, which is add a little photo, tiny photo or Instagram picture to your account, to your page. Now, my gorgeous friend Gina Aarons have sent me a number of small photos, and of course I've got some of my own that I take for reference pictures. So I have a number of these photos to actually have a look at. But one thing I really also wanted to do was make this a bit of a page about Happy Mail. Now, I received this painted paper, a sheet of painted paper in Happy Mail, but I then decided to use a hand-carved stamp of mine to stamp over the top of it because I thought it would make awesome flowers. And you know what? It has. I also love that mesh. It's got this gorgeous swirl pattern in it, and at some point I'm thinking to myself, I might like to do that. I've got a piece of scratch paper here from a project that I did on the weekend, and this is simply the inverse of spraying through a circle stencil. So this one here, spraying through this stencil onto a project, but then of course I've got delusions all over the stencil, so I picked up a piece of quite absorbent paper and then just sprayed it down, and that's kind of what I got. And then of course it was a bit of a scratch paper, and I've got bits and pieces everywhere, and oh, I really like it. That's the upshot of it. I really like it. So I kind of think to myself, well, I want to there's one here that's really in the orangey tones, and it says, good things come to those who believe, better things come to those who are patient, and the best things come to those who don't give up. I just love that. So I'm thinking to myself, I love the idea of tonally, you know, like I'm one that likes my pages to meld and gel together very well, and I like the idea of orange with orange, and then having the marry of the different colours here. I've got the blue left over from the scratch paper, and I'm kind of thinking of layering some stuff down and then working with it from that perspective. So I haven't figured out where I'm going to put that yet. I also thought about encasing that in a bit of washi tape. So again, it's orange, but I've got some purple as well. So I kind of thought to myself, yeah, I'm thinking about it in all these different contexts, and I will definitely get there. So the first thing I want to do is, this is just pure unadulterated scratch paper. I'm going to throw just a little bit of gesso on it. And this is really just so that I can have a little bit of texture and not just the scratch paper look, which I like, but which I want to be able to build on in this. And I'm going to use a palette knife to just spread this around. I'm going to start from this corner here, because I'm kind of wanting to have that scratchy look. And not a painted look. And of course the delusions, as that dries, the delusions will actually seep through it. And here I just want to create some texture so that we have a different looking background by the time that dries. And that will not look as white as what it now does. Those delusions are already seeping through, and so all you're really wanting to do is just mute it somewhat and have a bright section here. And I love that kind of smashy, it's got kind of like a smashed look. That's now going to have to dry before I can do anything else with it. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, so the gesso is now dry, and I'll just come in a bit so you can see that it's actually quite textured, and it's not, you know, and it's a really nice way that you can make these colours here look really pastel, because if you're putting delusions onto an absorbent paper, they are less likely to reactivate and run when you are applying something that will reactivate them later on. So what's happened here is that you can see that the colours have run just a little, but not a lot. All the circles are actually intact. You can see the pattern very well underneath. Now that's happened because this is an extremely porous paper, and although it's not always the best paper to do art journaling on for that very reason, in this particular technique where you're spraying delusions onto a very, very absorbent paper, it means that they are far more likely to hold the pattern and not reactivate as much. They will certainly bleed through subsequent layers to a degree, some more than others, but the pattern will stay intact, and that is something that I think is a really interesting thing to note. If you've got cheap, like really ultra cheap watercolor or art sketch pads, these particular ones, they actually if I'm jelly printing with them, they're the ones that are going to rip more easily because the fibers are not as hard pressed. So I've got a Stampin' Up pad here, and it's pumpkin pie. And I'm thinking to myself, I've got these lovely orangey sort of, they go very well with orange. There's no predominance of orange in those, but they would stand out, I think, particularly well on orange. So I'm actually just going to smudge in some orange here. And then I'm probably going to look at some Tim Holtz as well. Okay, so I'm liking where this is all dry now, and of course it's much more muted than when I first did it. As the inks dry, they melt into the gesso, and so they become a bit lighter. Now I'm still, if you have a look at that, we've still got some contrast there, but it's almost like I need to add in a bit of paint. So I'm kind of thinking of stenciling in some paint or stamping. I also printed out a couple of my doodle borders, and if you're interested in getting some of these doodle borders, they are available in my Etsy store. I will put the links on the description on this video if you want to go there. This particular one I have manipulated. On the Etsy store, the colours are much more pastel because I've used Lamore Weber's Tres Chicken Under the Boardwalk sprays on them. But all I actually did was I went into Photoshop with this and then changed all the values on it to more be in line with what the colours would be on this page. And that's the thing that I like. This one here was done on a security envelope, and when you print it out, make sure you print them out on laser printers. If you print them out on inkjet printers, you will have to seal them first before you do anything with them. Otherwise the inks will run. But I have a laser printer, so I can colour these in as well. So I'm just thinking about what I would do with some of those. I'm thinking that I would like to add them in, but I'm not quite sure where yet. I'm still looking at this now and thinking to myself, I need to add some more bold colour in. So I'm going to get some oranges, and I have a carmine. Let me just get a few. So I have a Perignon orange. I have a brilliant magenta, which is very much more like a fluoro kind of magenta, which tones in very well, I think, with all those colours. and a jaune just to make it, you know, that little bit more muted. Don't necessarily want to mute it all that much, but, and we are going for circles here, so I have a circle stamp that I really like. And I also have, this was a silicone coaster. My friend Heidi from the United States sent me the coaster because I can't get them over here, but I've made a stamp out of it. Just put it on some cardboard backing. My funky circle stamp, so this is using a Cuttlebug dye through funky foam, thin foam, in the funky circles dye, and then I've just randomly done a pattern. That's probably one of my most favourite stamps. So I've got those two there, but I'll probably use a stencil to just start this off. Now I love having all different patterns on my stencils, and when I do stenciling, very, very rarely do I ever use what they call a stenciling brush. I usually use, I'll just move some of this stuff away. I have a Happy Mail video that I'm doing a little bit later today, so I've got the Happy Mail out so I don't forget to thank the gorgeous people that gave it to me. Alright, so I'm just in my little palette. I'm going to blend some of these colours together. So I'm not going to actually just do one colour. I'm actually going to blend them together. I don't think I've actually even used this Brilliant Magenta yet. No, I haven't. So it's not quite as fluoro as the label would suggest. And I might just... Ugh, I hate it when things like that happen. Right, so you notice I've got all warm colours here. So if I've got warm colours, they'll all blend. They won't make mud. You've just got to be careful when you're using these that you're using warm hues, because you can get cold reds and you can get cold pinks and magentas. So anyway, so this has got to be one of my most used stencils. I probably should buy it in the bigger one. But I just love it. And I love it for the simple reason that it just, I don't know, I love diamonds, but this reminds me almost of fish eyes. And see, I'm just going to transition that here and go into the orange. And then it marries up. And then you've got the beautiful orange. And I'm going to leave it there. I might just put a little bit more of that. So we've got a transitional kind of an arrangement here. And further down here, now I'm thinking of flicking from the orange and the red. And remember, this is where these coordinating flowers will be. So they're great coordinating colours. Brilliant for this kind of thing. And I like these sort of scrubby brushes. I much prefer them over normal stenciling because there are less bristles. The bristles are nowhere near as stiff. And if I want to get into these really fine areas and the stencils are a little bit thick, or they're hand cut by me, then I don't have to worry about it because they just, all those bristles get in really well. You see those transition colours in there? And remember, I'm just going to lay that back in there again and just randomly marry that up, because this is just a background, right? Nothing really perfect. And because I've got the red and the purple on my brush, I'm getting a completely different colour here at the end. I love it. Gorgeous. And then I'm just going to get my brayer, and whatever small impression is left there, you just get that as well. Right, so you can still see my bubbles. This gesso pattern in the ink, you can still see hints of it there. And this particular, this particular page now is looking a lot more rounded, and you know how you get your you can get your crayons, and well, these scrubby brushes are great for feathering. So if you just want to add something like you've added ink to it, but you've actually added paint, on a nice textured paper like this, you can definitely get away with blending stuff in and doing that. And we'll just bring that out. Do like that so far. But of course, that is not the final layer, because that is not the way that I work. So I like the funky circles, and now I'm kind of thinking that I would need to use a stronger, bolder colour, quite possibly a red-black. I have a red-black. I just need to find it. So a red-black is like a deep, deep chocolate. So you can see there it's not perfectly black, and I can't find the lid for that one, so I've taped it up with masking tape. And I'm just going to paint, I'm just going to add in the tiniest bit amount of water to that. And you can see how that's like this rich, it's like dark chocolate. And I'm just going to paint these circles in, because I could use a jelly plate, but I can't be bothered bringing the jelly plate out now. So that's the most even application will always be using a jelly plate for these type of stamps. You don't generally use a brayer because, you know, sometimes your cardboard behind it curves a little bit, and these stamps can become a little bit curved. And that's why I use quite a watery paint, so it does not dry straight away and we get a really good coating. Give it a good press. And of course I've used a soap powder box. And there we go. Like I said, one of my favourite go-to stamps. I use it quite a bit, but you're seeing a little bit of the concave of the cardboard there. Depends how much pressure I want to apply to it. I'll just pop it this way. Yeah. So there we're getting some definite texture, and I'm just going to go on the edge here. And remember, the flowers are going to go over the top of that. So that's looking pretty good. I'm now starting to think that page is starting to pop. And I always leave the paint on these. I usually go on a scrap piece of paper and then impress them off until there's none left. But I'm not going to do that today. But I will use this leftover paint on some scratch paper. And this has been an old jelly print paper that I used for a completely different project. But because of the layers of paint on there, I can then wipe some of this off. So I'm going to get a baby wipe. I'll just wipe a bit of this off so you can see some of the paint underneath. And when you've got layers of paint, don't be afraid to use your baby wipe over the top, because wherever the paint's hit the actual page, it will definitely find it. You know, soak in, like you can see here. But if you've got any other paint there, it will form that paint will form a resist, particularly if it's light. And as that dries, it's going to look pretty awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to let that now completely dry, and then I'll be back. Okay, now this is completely dry, and I think now for me is the time to actually start adding my elements in. And I love these. Now these are Kindy bottles, and I've just got some fluid acrylics in there, and I really haven't thinned them down that much. I mean, often in fine liners you see that they're thinned down a lot, but I haven't done that. So I'm actually going to write some graffiti letters in here in different colours and do it on the page. I often do this with paint on a textured page like this rather than using a Posca pen, because often the Posca pen will bite into the fibres of the page, and they'll pick up colours and delusions, whereas these things, they don't. So I'm going to fast forward this part. Well, it's all nice and dry, and you can, I'll just zoom in, you can see all the graffiti I've put over it in those fine liners, which is really cool, because when you want to say something, you don't always have to say it in classic writing. So I have my little image, and so I'm sitting there going, okay, well, what is it that my puss just decided to try and open the door. Managed to get herself in. Knowing her, she'll probably just jump up. So I've got a couple of images here. I've got the one that's what I actually want to say, and I've got another one that's got some orange balloons, which I really like. And I like the idea of taping them in. So I'm going to do that. A little bit skew if. And now's the time where I kind of want to get a black marker or a Sharpie out. Get my black Sharpie. And also I'll get a roller pen, which is my Dina Wakley pen and a black Stabilo. I've got a Scarlet Lime pen there. Okay, so, oh, and I should get a white marker. Get a Signo Uniball white marker, because I just think these flowers would look good with some white spots. But now I'm kind of thinking to myself, I want to extend those out and put some shadows in down this side. And the aqua pen. Definition in that. And I think for me, that's just about done. It's really more of a simple page using some Happy Mail elements that I've got, and really bringing home, you know, the great relationships that I've got with the people that I exchange Happy Mail with, and most of those are in Crazy Island family. And this is a documented life page, and I'm in the documented life group, but I don't interact nearly as much because I'm actually an administrator on the Crazy Island family page, and it's a really fabulous social site, and I absolutely love being on that site, and it's just a great place to be, and it's where we do our letter journal swaps that I'm the creator of, and we get to do fun pages like this as well. So that's it from Missladypetal today. Learn something new today. It keeps you young. Ciao for now.